morning. This is the number one sports show on all of radio, the Sports Desk, with Liam, April, Tom, and the one and only, the Italian stallion himself, Ben. Good morning, Ben.
I'm good, thanks.
I said good morning, not how are you?
Because I was expecting how are you. So I've been on since 6 a.m, so I'm a little bit tired, but I am good, thanks.
Are you good?
And well, how are you guys anyway?
Oh, I'm swell.
Very good.
Yeah, excited. It's been a massive week in sport. Who would have thought that the thing we talk about most isn't the fact that there were 5 games in AFL last week that were decided by less than a goal. I wouldn't have even thought that. But today we're going to go through some AFL talk. We're going to go through the obvious topics of the week, like Andrew Gaff's suspension and the AFLW. And then we might move into some A-League special signings, whether they're just a novelty or not. And then we might move into a bit of rugby at the end. And potentially some crazy rules for the next World Cup.
Crazy.
But first, let's obviously start with the AFL. Andrew Gaff got 8 weeks yesterday in the tribunal. And in a damning press conference, he was almost in tears. It was reminiscent of what Steve Smith was like after the ball tampering saga. The question is the suspension too soft or too hard? What's everybody's opinion?
I think we'll leave Liam last because he's definitely going to have a bias towards this. April?
Oi.
I think the 8-week suspension, I think it's good for the direction the AFL should be trying to move towards in trying to get rid of this type of behaviour on field. Like, we don't want punches in the game, particularly behind the play and things like that. So they needed to make a statement on this one because it was such a significant, caused so much damage. And so I think the 8 weeks is good. I don't think I would have put it any higher than that, though.
Interesting. I was happy 8 to 10 anywhere from there. As long as he didn't, as long as it was impossible for him to miss the to not play the grand final. If there was even a possibility that he could play in a grand final, by let's say them losing their first round, and they finished top 4, and they play that extra 4 games. So it would have needed to be at least 7 to make sure, and I'm quite happy with 8. As long as I think finals counts as a lot more, and in the context of the season, the fact that he isn't playing a final series is good enough for me.
Yeah, I think 8 is probably the perfect number. Obviously, we remember back Barry Hall. He got was it 6 weeks?
He got 10. He got 10.
10.
But the rule in place was 25% for early plea, which doesn't exist anymore.
So it went down to 7.
Yeah.
It went down to 7. That's right. We saw what's his name, Tommy Bugg. When he hit Callum Mills, he got 6 weeks. So I think 8's fine for this one. Look, from the punch, and even in his testimony, he didn't mean to hit him in the head. And obviously you can take that with a grain of salt or whatever, but I think you can clearly see from that footage, it was just, you tic-tac, and then obviously he got him in the head. And still there's force there, and of course he's got to pay the consequences for his actions. But I think all this talk about him getting 12 weeks, which was brought up by Jared Waitley, I think that was very, very laughable.
The AFL brought it up in the trial.
That's laughable. 12 weeks. I mean, seriously.
I think you can tell that he's remorseful for it. He regrets it.
And
he's going to punish himself.
And people say they got to punish the act and not the person who's done it, who's committed the crime. But I mean, with Gaff, he's got an extremely good record. I think this is his first incident, if not maybe
first
one of his
offence.
Well, there you go. His
never
first
even got a
offence.
fine.
That's got to come into consideration.
Yeah.
Say if this was Barry Hall, for example, then you'd probably say, all right, look,
12.
maybe 12 weeks. That would be doable. But he didn't line him up. It was just pure in the moment that it happened. So that's why I think 8 weeks is fair enough. And in this modern age, that's got to be the penalty. I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
Now, Liam, as a Fremantle fan,
Yes.
avid West Coast hater.
No, I'm not.
Ooh, okay. You like it?
I've never been to I've been WA once. I don't get the West Coast Fremantle hate. Well, first of all, I'll start off saying people won't probably take my opinion into account because I'm a Freo supporter. But let's just say off the bat, Freo supporters' overreaction's been stupid. Just easily turn the other way around. Freo supporters be acting like how West Coast supporters are acting, and West Coast supporters be acting like Freo supporters are acting. But it's tough for the AFL. Just last week there was an incident of a coward punch in Melbourne, and Patrick Dangerfield got on social media saying, arrest the guy. That was a coward punch. Walked up and punched him in the face. You're trying to put a real world issue into weeks. Players, and I looked up an article. Someone got 2 to 2.5 years for breaking guys' jaw in 2 places with a coward punch. That's 2.5 years. Someone who was on parole who did the same thing, punched the kid in the face, broke his jaw. He's now off, has broke his parole, so he's probably going to go back to jail. It's really hard to take a real world issue, which is the coward punch, a king hit, and put it into AFL context. That's probably why people were saying 12 weeks. I know there was talk that the police are going to get involved. The Brayshaw family have said they're not going to take it any further. But I also wasn't a fan of the way the West Coast CEO and the West Coast coach handled it.
Yeah, and if especially for the CEO to come out and say these boys were playing golf the week before, and that's come out now that's not true.
No, not
now,
at all.
in terms of referencing it to like cowards punch and all that, like obviously yes, this can easily be classified as one of those, but to compare it to these people who are going to jail for 2-3 years, I think is a little bit not laughable, but a little bit too far, because these punches, not knowing it, but for someone to get 2 to 3 years, there's got to be a malicious intent involved to seriously hit this bloke in the head. Now, I think it's fair to say in the majority of bar fights, and whenever these coward punches occur, that person's going, all right, look, I'm going to punch you in the face when they're doing it, yeah? Do we really want to have that in his mind when Brayshaw was giving him niggle the whole
I do think
time?
the injury Brayshaw got, the broken jaw, which I think was broken by a couple of centimetres, he has to get 3 of his teeth
but the question,
properly removed in that.
But did Gaff seriously go, it's like, all right, I'm going to punch you in the head here?
Oh, he did. The punch was deliberate.
The punch was deliberate, but it wasn't to the head, which is why I don't think you can compare it to these
that's why I think
real-world
he can,
issues.
Because he went to punch him. He went to punch him with force. No matter where you punched him, he went to punch him with force.
If he punches him in the chest, this is the problem with the AFL. If he punches him in the chest, what does he get? 2 weeks? Maybe down.
It would be 2 or 1 depending on.
It'd be
how,
2.
If he didn't even miss, if he went off the ground for 5 minutes and came back on, he might have got a fine.
Yeah.
Like Zach Jones punched the week before. Zach Jones punched an Essendon Merritt before the bounce of the ball.
Yeah.
So the game hadn't even started yet, and because it was in the chest, it was $1,500, and that's the culture that they're trying to change now. And the big question is, do we get rid of punches completely?
Unless you're Tom Hawkins, you can't punch anyone.
So should those bans then, for like what Zach Jones did, because I thought under the current interpretation of punching now, he should have got at least a 1 week suspension or something. Does that need to happen now? Because my mindset is that if he didn't hit him in the head, he would have got away with it 1 or 2 weeks, which is why I'm saying like 8 weeks was fine.
Yeah,
that's why I don't like comparing it. But does this need to change?
Yeah.
Do we need to seriously outlaw punching?
I think they need to get rid of that mentality that you've got and start taking a stronger stance on all punches, regardless of where they hit, because every punch is intending to hit someone and hurt someone.
Yeah. It's just not a football act.
The way I was looking at the incident as well, if this was a JLT game on a local Perth ground, the injury to Brayshaw's head could have been much more severe than on the Perth Stadium surface as well. Because he went straight to the ground, would have hit his head on the ground. If it was at a nightclub, he could have died. That's how serious I think the punch was. Not just injury to Brayshaw, what could have happened if it was outside football. That's what I mean. It's such a hard thing to look at a football incident in a real world setting. It's something that could have anywhere else. Was it someone even said to me, you do this in any other workplace, you lose your job. You whack someone in the face, break their jaw. They need, at the age of 18, need surgery on their teeth to properly, I think he's lost nerves in 3 of them. You lose your job. You lose your job from that. You don't get just an 8-week ban from your job. You lose your job.
Yeah, that's a good point. But that means the culture needs to change.
Oh, the culture needs to change 100%.
All right, sticking on this, we'll just finish off this segment with the red card and the send-off rule. Should the AFL introduce a red card / a send-off rule for incidents such as this? Or just in general, what do we think?
This one's hard. It's like in the moment when that happened, everyone was probably on yes. And I was looking at a poll the other day, and it went I think it was 48 yes, 52 no. So it's pretty close. It's almost even. And I can see the arguments for both sides. I'm always in the belief that you should have one, but it puts so much extra pressure on the umpires that I don't know if they could handle it. And considering how woeful the AFL has been in rule changes in general and creating rules, the fact that they would introduce a red card would most likely mean that they would introduce it badly, and potential for a red card to be given to someone who doesn't deserve it, or for them to be way too cautious, and then it's like a goal review system where it's not needed whatsoever. So until they fix the game in its current state, I don't think it should exist. But if these keep happening, like Jeremy Cameron and Gaff, then there must be a consideration for it.
I originally I was always no for red card rule, but watching that, and Freo had nothing to lose in that game. I think you even saw Michael Johnson, who's going at the end of the year, line up Gaff. He didn't care. He doesn't care if he gets a 5-week suspension. He's leaving at the end of the season. But I also thought during that game, the game was over. I think it was the third quarter when it happened. West Coast was so far in front. I don't even know why they brought him back on. But now I do agree with the red card rule because just like the Harris Andrews incident and the Brayshaw incident, Callum Mills incident, the teams all play it down. Harris Andrews, it was the first quarter.
Yeah.
The game was still alive. But GWS, I don't think Jeremy Cameron ended up kicking 4 goals that game. So what if Brisbane lost by 4 goals during that game? That's one, your key defenders out. 2, their key forwards still in.
Yeah.
And I think, they've got one more extra player now on the field that shouldn't be on the field.
Yeah.
I think it'd be too hard to police, though, because
That's also true.
like a lot of the really bad incidents, like sometimes they're behind the play and umpires are just going to miss them. So I think if you do bring it in, you need someone off the field who is perhaps exclusively watching for those types of situations.
Like a third umpire, like the goal review.
Yeah.
I've usually thought I'm sort of the same. Like, it's hard to police for umpires to do that, but I think what they need to do is bring it in for this exact reason. For instance, like this, like you said, Liam, the Jeremy Cameron one, and have it decided by someone up in the bunker now, because obviously the umpires aren't going to be able to see everything that happens on the field, and it is very hard for them to make a split-second decision on the field whether or not to red card someone or what is deemed as a red card offence. So I think what needs to happen is send up to the bunker, or have them, because you know how they always review goals or whatever, have them review it. Have them review it in the background, whatever's happening on the ground. If an incident like the Gaff one happened where it was off the play.
And they didn't see it at all in the stadium, they never showed a replay.
Exactly, they didn't show a replay. So what they can do is they look at it, and then they can tell the umpires at the next stoppage, hey, all right, this is what happened. What's happened. Andrew Gaff's punched Andrew Brayshaw off the ball. Can you please give him a red card? That's it. Simple. It's not that hard. Yeah, he'll stay on for an extra minute or whatever, but is that really that much compared to him staying on for the rest of the game? And potentially, if it was a tight one, say in the Jeremy Cameron v Brisbane case, say he was the deciding factor for GWS beating Brisbane, this could be a huge play. So that's what I think. Bunker reviews it, tells the umpire on field. I think that's a perfect situation, and it's only for situations like this.
Well, the Brayshaw thing is quite simple. That would have happened. He got it. West Coast kicked a goal, and then they saw he was on the ground. They did the replay,
and they stopped.
He would have been off by the next bounce.
So you could have the umpires could have heard from the bunker. All right, he needs to get red carded.
Cameron would have been off straight away.
So exactly same thing, because Harris Andrews stayed on the ground. So this is what I mean. Incidents like this, where it's a clear punch and there's injury caused, obviously they got to have that framework behind it. But for incidents like this, where it's just complete and blatant, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Gone. They got to go off, because you're harming a team by
the camera's also much better. On the ground compared to like the behind the goals that they use for goal review, so it would be easier to tell whether it is a red card offence, I guess. Yeah.
You are listening to the Sports Desk here on SYN 90.7. It is politics, and you're here with Liam, Tom, April, and Ben. We're going to get back into some AFL chat, because on the weekend, while there were 5 incredible games that were decided by under a goal, over at Coburg, they had a trial of the 6-6-6 rule. Nails at Coburg, and it was against Werribee. That's probably why you got Werribee in it. But what do we make of it? So they implemented the 6-6-6 rule, And what they also had was an 18-metre goal square, double the size of a regular goal square. Now, if they're going to have this in the AFL, it's going to be a goal rectangle, obviously, because it's no longer a goal square.
It's still a goal rectangle. At the moment.
What do we think of it?
Man, it's like total karma. It's one of those moments where satire and the real world become one. Like the best week in football that we can remember. That's not a final series is the same week they trial new rules. It's like out of a sketch show. The 18-metre goal square looked ridiculous. I don't mind the 666 rule. Again, I've said on this show before that you won't get there's 15 seconds left. Let's put everybody forward. Let's put everybody back, like the Essendon game on the weekend. You won't get things like that. You won't get Ruffy running from the back into the centre, from the back of the square into the centre, unless he's one of the 6.
Actually, Tom, I've already found a way around that. I told April just before. What they'll start doing 15 minutes ago, they'll put a tall forward or tall someone on the edge of the square, the defensive edge of the square, as a wingman.
Tall someone.
As soon as the ball's bounced, he'll run into the back line.
He'll play the wing,
and then they'll get a forward to run up to the wing.
Okay.
So they'll find a way around it.
They'll find ways around it.
Already found a loophole.
Yeah. But it was just really, really funny to watch. And apparently, both Werribee and Coburg said that it didn't really have much of an impact. Yeah. That was the big takeaway from it. But they were they're like fourth bottom and bottom of the VFL. So the skills involved in that game are just so far below AFL that it's not a test of how it would work in the game. Because they lack the skills necessary to play AFL or VFL for that matter. So I don't think it's worth it.
What we're forgetting was there was extremely windy on Saturday, and that would have played a part in how obviously the kicks went from the 18-metre goal square. So I don't know if Saturday's match is an ideal indicator in terms of how this rule, obviously the 18-metre goal square, and the 666 rule will take place. And I mean, even the scoreline, obviously it was Coburg losing 58 to 105. Yeah, where we scored 100 points, but I don't think you can say it had a huge impact. But I think we need to see this rule, if we're going to see an effect on it, happen to 2 quality teams. Yeah. As hard as it's going to be to do that.
Yeah, that's the only way you'll get an accurate idea of what impact it's going to have. And I'm not surprised it didn't have that much of an effect. I don't think the starting positions overall are going to have a huge impact on the game. And it seems like a lot of effort to go to bring in the rule changes if it's not going to change that much.
I just think they need to get rid of the rules that they brought in. Yeah. So like the ruck nomination, the non-third man up. If they're really adamant with not having a third man up, like there wasn't that much of a problem with it, in my opinion.
It did help congestion when it was in, and it looked a cleaner game in terms of it stopped
with the third man.
No, without the third man. Yeah. It looked like stoppages were a lot better because of it.
I just think
the fact that they have to put their hands up.
Yeah, like under 10.
Just have one up. Just have one up. And if it's clear that there's a ruckman. Even if, say, for example, it's Paddy Dangerfield or a small player who's going for the ruck and they get blocked, I mean, it's not going to be that hard to police, in my opinion. If you see someone going for the ruck and they get blocked, and obviously because they've nominated, you're not going to know if they're in the ruck, it's not going to be that hard to police. I don't think it's that hard. Just have one up. That's it. That's all you need to do.
Hell, even do stoppages, probably not bench stoppage, but stoppages kind of like a normal centre bounce, and don't have them arm in arm, have them face-to-face type of thing.
Yeah, keep the 1 metre. Yeah, that's the rule. Yeah, 1 metre apart. Yeah, still have that. Still have the 1 metre apart rule. I like that.
That's doing an on-field ball up type of thing.
Yeah.
Just so you can know who's who.
Yeah, they still got that. They still got obviously the 1 metre rules there, but still have the 1 metre rule. Still have them one up. You got to be tighter. You got to not be tighter. You got to be lighter on that 5 metre infringement, because that also holds play as well, because they got to go around more. It's just like
they want players to define the laws of physics. It's it's a bit ridiculous.
If it's clear that they're avoiding the play and not trying to make an impact, just let it go. As I've said before, that's what we do at local footy. If they're making an attempt to get out and not trying to impede the kicker, just let it go. Unless, obviously, they're in the zone and then all of a sudden, oh, he's kicking the ball. I'm going to smother him. Bang, 50.
Yeah.
That's when you do it.
Yeah.
With the rule changes, I think Essendon and Hawthorn was a beautiful looking game the entire game. Wasn't congested, wasn't clogged. Even in the last few minutes, it was fine. And that's what good teams do. Good teams can play the non-congested style. It's the poorer teams that will play the congested style. And that's something that will probably never change no matter what rules they bring in.
Yeah, that was the criticism of Damien Hardwick, who said a while ago that be careful of the rule changes because it potentially has and it can cause an issue where it would just make the good teams better and the worst teams
Why? Free agency's doing
worse.
that itself.
Yeah, well, on top of that, but it's just making you could see a situation where the bad teams get the extended goal square. They kick the ball into this corridor more because they can they can go deeper into the corridor as their game plan, and because they're less skillful, a Richmond type will just set up for that and just kick it straight over their head and punish them even harder than they have been previously. So you could see even more blowouts for top versus bottom games. So it might not have any effect on two quality teams, but if they make the games worse than GWS Carlton on the weekend, it's going to be a real problem.
That was a debacle.
That was
GWS
the
went
fact
down
that they
to
16 players is one of the crazy anything like that in a game of sport ever.
There was in a JLT game. I think Richmond during the last quarter went down to 16 players, but that was a JLT game, not a proper game.
That was a premiership point. You don't hear in NBA the Warriors start play with 4 because they're resting a player.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous.
I want to move to AFLW now. Now, this caused a lot of controversy. Last week, the AFL floated that they were going to have a 6-game home and away fixture with 2 finals. Now, they've sort of backtracked on it this week and come out and said that they're going to have a 7-game, so back to the original format. What are we making all of this? Should they have, because obviously now there's 2 new teams in North Melbourne, Geelong joining the competition, should they have a 9-game home and away season so each team plays each other once, still have the 2 finals, or how do we think this should play out?
I think now the AFL, at first I didn't believe they rushed the AFLW, now I believe they did because they don't have a long-term plan.
Yeah.
They've got 4 teams entering next season.
Yeah.
I don't think they have
any.
any.
In 2020,
they have no clue what they're going to do.
Richmond, St Kilda,
Gold Coast,
and West Coast.
And that also adds 2 extra weeks of travel to Perth and travel up to Queensland again for the teams. They have no clue what they're doing. No. They should at least have a plan to introduce new teams and what they're going to do with the season. And the fact that the VFLW is a much more important and much more better league than the AFLW, it's a joke.
Yeah.
I think the thing with that is because the VFLW is so it's an established season, and what they still kind of treat the AFLW at the moment as an exhibition thing. It's not taken that seriously, and I think if they shorten it, that's only going to increase people seeing it as that and not valuing it in the same way they do the AFL. I think they've rushed to bring in the new teams, but they've done that now, and I think you need to have every team play every other team.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, you need at least players playing once. And the only reason that they're playing the 6-game comp is the fact that that the media don't want to buy it, that the commercial media don't want to buy it, right? Foxtel doesn't want to buy it. 7 only wants to put on 6 games. Clearly, that's been the conversation that they've had with this, their suits and ties behind closed doors. Yeah. And they're not willing to subsidise the AFLW by putting it on the ABC because clearly the ABC would gladly play every game live all summer long, and it'll be amazing. It'll be Big Bash, AFLW, and Test cricket all at the same time.
And the tennis.
And the tennis potentially all at the same time, and all on different channels, and it'll be an amazing representation of Australian sport. Yeah. But they're not willing to give it to the public broadcaster because it's not making a profit, and it's such short-term thinking that it's ridiculous. And you heard Daisy Pearce go out and almost attack Gillan McLachlan for it, and then Gillan McLachlan basically just not even caring. Like, he said some smart ass comment about how the World Cup is only
Oh.
4 weeks, and it's just like,
Yeah.
that's reminiscent of like the days of like the 60s where it's like you have to listen and not be heard. It was just like really, really,
Yeah.
really horrible
Oh, it was not
comments.
nice. He's having a terrible year, Gil.
Yes,
Absolute shock over here.
It's not been a great
Now,
year.
I've got an idea. I'm not for or against it, but it's just something that I thought of in terms of trying to fit more games for the AFLW and obviously trying to accommodate for more teams joining it. Clearly, the AFL don't want to have the AFLW season playing alongside the AFL season. Now,
Yep.
obviously, I'd like to see that.
That's what I, yeah.
But at this stage, it's not going to happen. What if... Now, this is obviously a huge hypothetical. I doubt it's ever going to happen, but I just want your thoughts. There's been a lot of talk about reducing the AFL season to 17 games. Obviously,
Oh,
for
I
each
don't like
team
that
to
either.
play each other once. Now, I'm a fan of that, but the issue here is with broadcasters and having obviously 6 less rounds of footy, which obviously I'm not a huge fan of, but I do like the idea of fairness and having each club
Yeah.
play each other once.
See, I'm not a fan of that.
What if we did that? What if we had a 17-round season, you push the season back, and then therefore you get an extra 6 weeks to play AFLW?
The issue-
Again, this is just a proposal.
Yeah,
The
if
issue with that-
money was no object. That would
the
sound
issue,
great.
the issue with that is the players that want it probably won't take the pay cut that they should get if it's a 17-round season.
Well, why would they?
They
They,
won't-
won't change the salary.
No, they won't.
Would,
They
the
should change
AFLPA
the
would
salary.
probably be on board with that if you could
Yeah.
negotiate something where the salary cap's the same. So why
Yeah.
would it? Like, it wouldn't
Yeah.
change
The salary,
salaries.
yeah, we're not going to reduce the salary cap. Let's say that.
I think you should reduce the salary cap. If they're paying less games, and the
Let's say
public
we don't,
get to
though.
see less games.
If
Um,
there's no change to salary cap at all, nothing else has changed. Just the fact that it's 17 games now,
I love
17-round
that.
season.
I love that idea. But
You love it?
yeah, but
Hmm.
broadcasters are never going to go for it because
Yeah.
at the moment AFL is making them the most money. AFL Women's making them not that much money.
I thought
so
Foxtel was owned by the. I thought Fox Footy was owned by AFL.
No. It's owned by Fox Sports. and
Etihad's
they-
owned by
they-
AFL.
Yeah. But like
Or Marvel.
this, even if they didn't that's very drastic on like one end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
But just get the ABC to play
Mm.
all games live, or even like Facebook stream the games,
Yeah, like
some of the games.
The women Big Bash.
Yeah, just Facebook stream some of the games. If you like really wanted Channel 7 to broadcast it so you could make money, if you could make money off the broadcast rights, okay, say 6 rounds will be, or every second round will be on 7, and every round in between that will be streamed on afl.com.au, and it's like, you could get a 14-year-old to set up
Yeah.
the stream for that. It's
Because
just
there's
like,
no
a bit
longer
ridiculous.
like a sin for an online business or
No, they were playing the
corporation
NFL
to-
games streamed on Twitter. Like, it's just
like
what it
we
is.
saw. Obviously, there was a kerfuffle with the World Cup
Yeah,
coverage with Optus Sport,
but
but
you're not going to get the numbers like that.
there's an example of
Yeah.
that. So it's not a big deal if you bring it to an online platform. But
I can see.
I
it
still
sit
think
out.
the best idea is to have it played during the AFL
Yeah.
season. Like, it's just curtain raiser. Everyone can watch. You watch the women's, then you watch the men's. It's perfect.
Yeah.
I can see it sit out or threaten to strike if they get the 6 games plus finals.
Oh, yeah.
There's no women. There's no woman there that's happy with that. No woman's like, that. What I see is happening at the moment. AFL's like, here's the women. Look what the women. Look what the women can do.
Yeah.
That's it. It's just showing off for what the women can do.
Mm.
It's not taking them seriously. Not taking them
Yeah.
properly as athletes. And I think it's. And then I think someone said AFLW is a pioneer for women's sports. Completely forgetting about the Matildas, who are just on an absolute amazing run of them. I think that nearly
Almost took the Tournament of
Yeah.
Nations. They
Yeah.
they defeated Japan 2-0, but USA, I think they defeated Brazil 4-1 to get it.
And then you got the Hockey Roos, who just missed out, who finished 4th
Yep.
in the World Championship. But the AFLW are the pioneers of women's sports.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
those other sports, they're the ones who have had their women's leagues established for such a long time.
Yeah.
And now the AFL's just jumped in and
Yeah.
Elise
They-
Perry
they-
did a massive signing to play for Victoria. That's big news.
Yeah.
Bigger news than any AFLW news of the last year. So
Yeah.
They're just not thinking like long term. Like it should become a situation where AFLW is like and AFL is like women's and men's tennis. They're
Yeah.
like
They happen
they're
together.
identical. Apart like other than like the 3-set 5-set thing, which is like fine, whatever. But you get paid the same. They're on at the same. They're on at like the same time. They're the same spectacle.
Because imagine this. Imagine you eventually do get every single AFL team to have a women's team. On grand final day, remember how you used to have the TSC Cup play? Rather than that, obviously, you'd have the women's play.
Yeah.
How good would that be?
Amazing.
You get 100,000 people there at the MCG. Have the game obviously be played during the morning, probably around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, so it'd still be in front of a fair crowd. I don't see why not. You are listening to the Sports Desk here in Sin 90.7. It is a Politics. You are here with Liam, Tom, April, and Ben, and we're now going to get into some soccer because there have been some huge signings which have been announced recently in the A-League. One is not an official contract, but it is a training contract, and that is Usain Bolt, still the world's fastest man, from Jamaica, has signed to train with the Central Coast Mariners officially. What do we make of this? What are our thoughts?
He's going to play.
Yeah, he'll play.
Yeah. Central Coast are too small of a market to not have him play.
I just think him himself, and no matter who he went to, he's too big of a name not to play.
Yeah.
And A-League's a competition that has nothing to lose, even if he's terrible at it.
Yeah, it's definitely it's gonna draw bigger crowds, and that's what the A-League wants. So I think they're gonna push to try make sure he gets on for the game.
100%.
And
I haven't been to an A-League game in 2 years. I'll go to watch Usain Bolt. Like that's what it is. Getting those people who like soccer, but don't like the skills of the A-League, or don't like watching the A-League because of the skills. It's getting them through the door. It's getting the EPL fans.
Should they make Bolt play regardless or not if he's up to the standard? Say he's just a little bit below the standard of the A-League. Should they still get him to play?
I think they will get him to play.
It depends how far below. If it's, if he can manage, it's fine. If he's clearly not good enough, I don't think he should play.
He's fit enough though.
Say he's clearly not good enough, because I'd argue that Central Coast they'd still want to play him.
Yeah.
Does that say more about the A-League, that how desperate they are to try and create a viable platform for people to watch and support, that they're going to give games to these big star athletes, regardless if they are well adept to the standard of A-League?
Yeah, it could backfire completely as if they play him. He's clearly like the worst player in the team or the competition, and then it becomes more of a gimmick. The question would be, if that happens, do they continue down that path until they find someone that works, or do they just say, okay, it didn't work this time, let's just get genuine soccer players at the end of their careers, like a David Villa, like a Kazuki Honda who just signed.
We'll get back to that.
Yeah. So that's the question. But
I suppose the thing with Usain Bolt is that they haven't picked him out of nowhere. He's been pushing for a while to try and get into soccer. He's trialled with other clubs overseas, and he didn't make the cut there, but now he's come here, and obviously our standard's not as high. So he could turn out to be fine and good enough, and it could all go well.
And speaking of Kazuki Honda, he has signed with Melbourne Victory recently. Now, obviously, a lot of Australian soccer fans will know of his name because of the many times that Australia has played played against Japan. And he's obviously been on the enemy side. What are we thinking of this signing? Are we liking it from Melbourne Victory?
I think
do we like to see Honda on our shores after, I guess, not being great fans and avid supporters of him because he has been playing for the enemy?
Yeah, I think the only player that probably wouldn't get selection in the A-League would be Fabio Grosso. That would be the only player that I think wouldn't get in. Other than that, we're taking everyone who we're getting.
Can you give some background to the listeners on that?
So Fabio Grosso was the player who dived in the 2006 round of 16 when in Lucas Neal after they were a man down. And they took it to penalties and they won.
And what was the Frenchman's name who did a similar thing? Not Griezmann, because Griezmann's was sort of alright, but who was the one that kept diving and came out and admitted
Hernandez,
yes,
yeah. He probably won't. Yeah, we'll probably have to wait another 5
because he admitted it. He said, "I just do it for theatrics." He's like, seriously, get off.
Probably those two players.
That's why soccer's not that popular in this country.
I think
that's the reason.
Yeah, definitely. I think Honda's a good signing. It'll be quality to watch. That's what we need. We need quality players to come here, and then it'll build everybody up, right?
Yeah.
And it'll get the young people, like the younger players, involved. It'll like show them how experience develops, and it'll make them better players. It'll make the competition better.
I've been saying for a while now that what the A-League needs is a non-Australian international player. Not a former international player, like a current international player. And that's exactly what he is, and that's exactly what the A-League needs. And he's gone to a big club, Melbourne Victory. I think the most members, just coming off a championship win.
Yeah.
The big clubs make the big money, especially in soccer, and I think that's a fantastic signing for the A-League, fantastic signing for sport in Australia itself, really.
Yeah.
It's going to be it's a ripple effect. It's going to be a long-term effect as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Moving on to that, Daniel Arzani just signed on loan
From
City. From Man City.
From Man City. Do you think this is good preparation for him as a young talent? Is this the right market to play? We won't be able to see him at this stage because the rights to the Scottish Premier League are up in arms after the media company went bankrupt. But at this stage, I think it's not a horrible club to go to. Clearly, Tom Rogic has improved while being there, as we saw from the World Cup. So, what's everyone else's opinion on this?
Yeah, fantastic.
I think it's a good thing for him. It's going to get him, like, Man City's not that... They said they're not that interested. They're happy with their squad at the moment, so I think it's good that he's not just going to sit around there.
Yeah.
And he's going to go out and go to a good club. And
it won't be like a Trent Sainsbury situation where he's just on the bench for Juventus. So I think this is a solid signing, and hopefully, like, it develops him into a better player.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things when he got announced in the squad, and when he made the friendly just before the game where he did score. There are a lot of commentators saying that potentially he should stay in the A-League for one more season because a lot of players go too early.
Yeah.
And of course, I wonder if before the World Cup they were thinking that Tom Rogic went too early, but clearly they got it wrong because he was a much better player for it, and hopefully, like long term, he will be a better player because of it.
And obviously that appealed to Arzani, the fact that Tommy Rogic was there. I think one of the rumours going around is that Arzani essentially refused to go to loan to any other club other than Celtic because he knew and he has a really good friendship with Tommy Rogic. And obviously as a youngster, what is he, only 18 now?
19, yeah.
Sorry, 19 now. That's a huge factor. So the fact that he's got a friendship already there with an Australian who is from his country of birth, that's fantastic. So
exactly from his Iran.
Yeah, I realised that from his. I realised as soon as that came out, I'm like, hang on a second, I stuffed that up. From the nation that he plays for. I think it's fantastic, and I like it. I'm a fan of the move. It's good.
How good is it as well? He's 19. He's not a 22, 23, 24-year-old who's been in the A-League system for years. He's played, one season in the A-League.
Yeah.
So he's going to be, by the time he's 25, he's got more experience in European football, soccer than he has in Australia, which in the long run
should help him. Yeah,
comes to the Socceroos, he's going to be phenomenal.
And what it comes down to, if he's good enough, it'll make him better.
Yeah, 100%.
Exactly. All right. Soccer penalties.
I saw this. This is hilarious.
Should they be changed to be like hockey penalties? And this is obviously like where players, they run up to it and they kick the goal. And obviously you see it a lot in ice hockey. If you've ever watched a Mighty Ducks movie, you see it all the time. They go around the goal, whatever. I don't think it'd be like that where they go around the goal, but it'd just be they get to a certain point.
So for context, this has happened before in soccer. If people don't know, back in the 90s when the MLS started, this is how they took penalties. They had the players.
Yeah, I did. I watched this. Yeah.
The players had 8 seconds to score. It was 1-on-1 with the keeper, and they started just before. It was either just before the box or just before the box started. Like they had a line there, and that's where they started. And it was exactly like hockey, apart from the touch line. Apart from the touch line, so they're modelling it off old MLS. like the early seasons, and I saw this and I laughed. It looks, when you watch footage of it in the 90s, it's the funniest thing ever. It's just it makes no.
And they were laughing
no
as
sense.
well.
Yeah, it makes
They were
no
laughing
sense.
as well.
I
Liam,
think
April.
I think one of the positives for that is that it's using the actual skills from the game. Whereas right now, which some people like, is that penalties are a completely different skill set, and so some people are going to be really good at it, some people aren't, and it's not necessarily something you use in the rest of the game. Whereas if you change it to more the hockey style, then it's using the skills that you're using in the game.
The equal best player in the world can't take a penalty. That's like the best thing about that's the best thing about penalties is that it's like you could have Mila Jedinak and Lionel Messi, and you'd pick Mila Jedinak to take a penalty.
Of course.
Yeah, every time.
Hey, Sue himself.
Yeah.
Liam.
It's not a good idea at all. Not a good idea at all.
It's a good idea in theory.
It's
but when
something
you
you see how that's how little kids play soccer. They run as close to the goalkeeper as possible and try to kick it.
Yeah.
So many as a goalkeeper when I was in my younger years, so many balls got kicked in my face because they run so close to you. It's not a good idea.
It's a good idea in theory, but when you saw the replays from the MLS back then, it's a bit laughable. It's a bit laughable to say the least. We are going to get to our wrap-up now, and we do have a couple of topics now. Billy Slater, unfortunately, he's set to retire at season's end for Melbourne Storm, of course. He's been around for ages. Absolutely fantastic career that he's had for the Storm, of course. This season he earlier retired from State of Origin, so I guess this was only a matter of time when he was going to retire from the NRL and from Melbourne Storm. Now, with Cooper Cronk leaving last year to go to the Sydney Roosters, Billy Slater now retired, Cam Smith on the way out. Is this the end for the Melbourne Storm era?
Definitely. See, the Melbourne Storm era isn't the main issue. The Melbourne Storm era, era's come to an end. It's the fact that where the rugby team is, it's in Victoria. I've got an advantage sheet here. That good example of the Brisbane Lions. Once all their stars played left, football in Queensland just went absolutely downhill. I've got a feeling that could be the same with rugby. Because even now in the NRL, there's little Victorian rugby league players. I think the Newcastle Knights captains is from Melbourne. But apart from that, I don't know any other Victorian NRL player.
Yeah.
So it's a big worry.
It's hard in Victoria for them to get crowds and things. That rugby is not a huge following for it.
Actually, Melbourne Storm, they hit 25,000 members this week.
But then so did GWS, so that's...
And bigger than Brisbane as well.
But I think if they lose their big players, then that's going to lose a bit of interest as well, which will be hard for the future of rugby in Victoria.
Yeah, that's probably the bigger issue than the players leaving. It's how will they cope with the players leaving? How will rugby league in Victoria play out once all these players are gone?
I've just had a look at the stat where Melbourne Storm lie in terms of the membership rankings. Now, this was taken a couple of weeks back. Now, of course, they are at 25,000, but they're fourth. They are fourth. The highest at this stage, it was the 26th of July when they took these stats, but the Brisbane Broncos, they had 35,527. That's the highest record membership tally
not many,
in the NRL.
Yeah, members in NRL aren't big at all, aren't they?
AFL smash it.
Yeah.
AFL's
Well, actually,
better.
quickly before we go off air, if you look down there, Gold Coast Suns have more members than Gold Coast Titans, so they're not doing as bad as people make it out
Gold
to be.
Coast Titans are fast. They should have been gone ages ago.
Oh, they should have.
Just to finish off, Carmelo Anthony officially to Houston. Does this help or hinder their chances for taking out the Western Conference and making a charge for the NBA championship?
With Golden State's team, no one has a chance.
Yeah, it's basically
But
a
does
race.
it help them or does it hinder them?
It's a race to second place. I think he'll be all right. It's a 1 year deal, so clearly it's a play to make finals to make the finals instantly.
It's better than bringing a knife to a gunfight than not bring anything at all, really.
I'd argue that it hinders them because Melo, right now, it's argued that and it's clear he should be coming off the bench, but he has stated that he doesn't want to come off the bench and that he's just going to be starting. So I'd argue that it may hinder them and hinder their chances. So obviously time will tell, but just watch this space. Interesting, very interesting. Anyway, that's it for this week's edition of Spolitics. It's been a pleasure, guys.
Always
Thank you.
is.
That's
Thanks,
where you
Ben.
all come in. Obviously, you can get into our socials on Facebook and Twitter at The Sports Desk or at Sports Desk Sin, which is the Twitter handle. This show and all our other shows will be uploaded and are on right now on Omni, as well as iTunes. So do chuck us a subscribe on iTunes.
Oh, we're
but
everywhere.
our next show will be on Friday at 9 a.m. So until then, enjoy whatever sport is coming up after this.